Hello, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get us started. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Builder Partnerships Webinar Wednesday. Today, we are going to be talking about how to manage supply chain disruptions. It's a big issue that's kind of come up as another COVID response. So we're going to try to cover some really interesting ways to look at that. Today you're going to be learning a lot of great information, and although it is related to our current 2020 issues, the things that you're learning today are going to be helpful for all times as well. So it's really good to take good notes during the webinar, and then as you have questions, please feel free to ask them throughout the webinar. Dad, if you could switch the slide. We have a Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen. If you pull your mouse down to the bottom of your screen, a Q&A speech bubble should come up right there, and you can ask questions throughout the webinar. We will likely hold all questions until the end of the webinar, but feel free to ask them throughout so that we can make sure to get those at the end. We are recording this, so when you after the webinar, if you want to come back and revisit it, it will be on our website at builderpartnerships.com/events. So you can visit this again at a later time. So if you could switch the slide again, Chuck.
I'm trying. There we go.
We want to thank our sponsor, ECI. They have been a tremendous supporter of Builder Partnerships in our webinar Wednesday. So go ahead and switch again. I'll give you a little information about ECI. ECI Software Solutions provides industry-specific cloud-based business software solutions and services across 9 different industries. In 2017, Mark Systems, along with LotView, became a member of the family of products. Lasso CRM, and most recently Build Tools, a solution for custom builders and remodelers, round out our offerings, currently available for the residential home construction market. For over 35 years, Mark Systems has been the home building industry leading single platform, completely integrated, easy to use cloud-based solution that maximizes business efficiency for home builders and property developers. Leveraging industry knowledge and ECI's expertise in business software across industries, Mark System continues to evolve and provide leading support to its users. Built by ECI and powered by Cognitics, Mark Systems executive dashboards allow home building executives and managers to easily identify ways to improve their business's performance, assessing powerful analytics that highlight important key performance indicators for your business. The dashboards give you the ability to drill down into project details to see underperforming areas without running multiple reports or doing manual calculations. Again, we want to thank ECI Mark Systems for continuing to support our webinar Wednesdays. All right, I'm going to end the polling here, but we're going to, before I tell you a little bit about our speakers, we have a quote that we like to share. I'm not a product of my circumstances, I'm a product of my decisions. So this will be a great webinar for you guys to focus on some of your decisions that you'll be making. Our speakers today are Chuck Shinn. He's been in the industry for over 50 years. Actually, he was practically born in the industry. He can't possibly be a whole lot older than 50 years old.
Yeah, sure.
But he's an expert in all of these different in all these different issues. He's been studying the economics of home building, the business administration of home building, and really focusing on the management to make sure that your organization becomes a profitable organization. Right, partnering with him today is Ed Hauk. Ed has been in the industry for over 22 years, and he has actually been working closely with us for about 15 years now as a senior consultant. And he and Chuck are going to talk to you today about the supply chain disruptions and how to navigate those. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Chuck and Ed.
Oh, thanks, Emma Jane. Yeah, Ed's been with me in one form or another since '92. So he's kind of the young man of the group, and you saw the profit doctor sitting there giving you advice, and I guess the advice probably is worth about 5 cents per that picture previously. But what we want to do is talk about what's going on in the industry right now. And just an overview of the impact on the supply chain and what the disruption has occurred. We were having a great year. The first 2.5 months of 2020 was absolutely dynamite. Everybody was busting their plans, and they're doing it now again also. But COVID came up, and it was March 12th when it was declared a pandemic. And at that point, it was social distancing, and then over the weekend, they changed it from social distancing to shelter in place, which sent everybody home and basically closed down the country. And at that point, we had a lot of problems with the factories. We had the factories, we had all of a sudden had to figure out, okay, we have to social distance in the factory. We have to reduce the number of people per shift. We have to do a whole bunch of things that began to occur at that point. It was disrupting the supply chain, and a number of states closed down completely. Pennsylvania closed down completely. Michigan closed down completely. And in those situations, what happened is the plants were closed. You couldn't get any material. And it's very hard to restart up a plant when it's closed down. The other thing that happened was the federal government, and some of what they did was put $600 a week subsidy on top of your unemployment. So what was happening is some of the factory workers and labor, especially in the lumber mills, they were making more money on unemployment than they could make working. So you talk to some of the managers, and they said, we can't get our people back. Well, that's over with, but that was also a disruption that was occurring in the operation. We're going to talk also about the results of the study, because it's not everybody's worried about lumber, and that's one of the things. But the first thing that we started hearing about, I can't get cabinets, I can't get appliances, I can't get door hardware, I can't get door slabs, I can't get, and so it's been very broad brush in the lack of ability to get things. That's why we did the study, to try to figure out exactly what was going on. And then the other thing that we're going to be talking about is, what can you do to try to help yourself through this disruption that's been occurring, and then we're going to do questions and answers. But let's look at the big picture, the impact on the supply chain of the disruption. The housing has been on fire. And all of a sudden, we were totally closed down. Now, many of the states declared housing as a vital industry, but there were a number of, like the state of Washington, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and other ones closed down. In fact, they even had the police showing up at the job sites to make sure that nobody was working on the job sites. So it was a 100% close down. Well, what did that do for the manufacturers? The manufacturers are sitting there manufacturing basically what they thought 2020 was going to be in the forecast for 2020. All of a sudden, they had forecasts that, and the total stoppage in the industry. And the industry, I think the industry leaders, NAHB and some of the economists, forecast the demise of the housing industry at that point, where we were going to drop off 30 to 50%. The problem is, we had very low interest rates. We had historically low interest rates before we went into the problem, and we had very strong sales, and we had a backlog. If you look at some of the economics of it, we started the year out somewhere between 3.5 and 4 million houses short of what we needed to have to meet the demand for housing. So we started out without the capabilities. Why did we have the situation where we had the backlog. Well, 10 years ago, we lost about half of our labor force. We also lost half of the builders. Typically, this country has somewhere close to 100,000 home builders in the marketplace. We went down to about 48,000 builders during the Great Recession, and we got some of it back, but not all of it back. We also lost about half of our labor force, our tradesmen. A lot of our tradesmen come from Mexico. They went to Mexico or they went to Canada. They didn't come back. So we started the year out probably 25% short on the labor that we needed to have in order to build the product that we were looking at. And we lost a bunch of them with the close down that we had. Now, the saving grace was the stimulus package. The stimulus package with the PPP kept our employees in place. It also allowed us to keep our doors open. We sent $1,200 to an individual, $2,400 to couples, plus $500 per child. So there was an immediate funding back into the population. Coming out of the 6 weeks of closure, the general population had more savings than they've ever had in their lives, with the fact that they were getting the PPP money, so they were basically still employed, and they got the stimulus package, and even if they got unemployed, they had the additional $600 per week and they couldn't spend anything. Emma Jane told me, she says, I got a new car just before this happened. I still don't have any miles on it. Well, that's the case. You didn't go to work. You didn't commute. You didn't go to the only place you went to was a grocery store, because all the restaurants were closed, all the retail was closed, everything was closed. So you're saving money. So in addition to that forced savings with the stimulus package, the consumer came out of this with quite a bit of money. That allowed them to have enough for earnest money deposits for housing. The other thing that happened was the Fed dropped the interest rates to 0 for the Fed funds rate, which meant that the mortgage rate went down. Well, the mortgage rate, as of last week, for a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage was 3.02%. If you got a 15-year mortgage, it was less than 2.5% interest. That's free money. So this stimulates the consumer tremendously. Since we had a backlog, we had no inventory. So if you're going to buy, you got to buy to be built. So huge influx occurring in this operation, and we still have the labor shortage, which I was talking about. With the industry, our supply businesses were looking at was the fact that there were forecasts coming out from industry experts that we were going to have a 50% drop-off in housing activity in 2020. Well, they, as good businessmen, did exactly what they should have done. They were building their inventory for the year, and what they did is they started selling off the inventory. They started getting rid of it. They also slowed production or stopped production. It was almost automatic that they had to do that because they had to have smaller shifts. They had to have fewer shifts because they had to have cleaning crews in to the factories to clean the factories. They had to have the social distancing and so forth. So production slowed down. Some of them closed plants. Some of them just decided, okay, we're not going to build this much. We don't need this much capacity, so let's close a complete plant. So those are the things that were occurring during the 6 weeks as we went through the COVID-19 close down in the operation. But here's what really happened. You see, these are charts, and I got 3 or 4 charts here. This is total housing starts. And you see that we were building up to a real strong starts. This is both multifamily and single family. And it dropped off like a rock. As we closed down the country, it dropped off. Okay? And then on May 1st, we built it back up again, and you begin to see what happened from May, June, and July. All of a sudden, we're almost back up to the peak of what we had. The difference here basically is the little multifamily piece that we have. But if you look at that, you look at the single family starts that were going on. Well, all these starts were happening while our suppliers were closing down. And they did not expect to have this very sharp V-shaped recovery in the housing industry. They figured it was going to drag out, much like it's drug out for the last 10 years. Because if you look at the last 10 years, we never made it back to even normal rates of production prior to the 10 years that we were looking at. So we bounced back very fast. That's single family. This is multifamily. You see multifamily also bounced up very rapidly. Everybody's saying that multifamily is going to slow down. It's not necessarily going to slow down. It's going to slow down in major metropolitan areas, but I have a ton of apartments, three-story walk-ups in second-tier and third-tier cities and communities that were built in the early 70s that need to be refurbished or replaced. And so there's still going to be quite a bit of multifamily activity that's going to be going on. And here's sales. Look what sales have done since May 1. Skyrocketing. And it isn't slowing down. It's going to be, and I will tell you, it's not going to slow down for a decade. Everybody's going to say, well, it's going to ease off. It's not going to ease off. First off, the Fed says it's not going to raise interest rates for 2 years. So we're going to have unbelievably record low mortgage rates going through for the next 2 years. This is going to be a great time for home building. But it is causing a lot of problems because we don't have the sources of supply that we need to have to support the kind of volume that we're going to be experiencing going forward. This is existing homes, okay? Now, why did I put existing homes in here? Because look at how it skyrocketed back up. It's like this drop off for the last 6 weeks, or for the 6 weeks, didn't exist. Well, this is forcing Home Depot to buy studs, to buy OSB, because every one of those houses that they're buying in the existing home market, they're going to be remodeled. So this is kind of forecasting what we're going to start seeing from the remodeling end of the market also. So the demand is everywhere. And what we're looking at, maybe not commercial, but in residential, we've got huge demand going through the operation. So what did we find out from the survey? Ed, you can chime in any place you want to. We're going to be tag teaming this, so.
Yep, that first part was all you.
All right. Okay. He's my color coordinator, so he's going to jump in and give us some advice here as we go forward. We conducted the survey, and we surveyed the builders, and we surveyed our manufacturers. I will say the response back from the builders was a heck of a lot stronger than the response back from the manufacturers, probably because the manufacturers don't want to let anybody know what the hell's going on with them. But anyway, we got some pretty good results back from the manufacturers. And this is what we found out. On the builders, 96% of the builders that we surveyed were experiencing issues on product availability. The top 3 products that we show were appliances, lumber, and windows. And it's broadened from that, because now we're starting to see door hardware. We're starting to see interior trim. We're starting to see a lot of other stuff that's coming up as issues that we're having with product. But you see on the side, the list of all the products that we had and the relative place of what we had. You see appliances, 75% of the respondents said appliances were in short supply, even more so than what we saw in lumber. However, lumber's getting worse and worse and worse. The other products that we saw, composite decking, hardwood flooring, bath hardware, these were the things that were in pretty much not available or had long lead times. And we're starting to see some very long lead times. I just was looking at something, and I think we've got probably a chart on it, but OSB, right now, OSB prices are going nuts. And the orders from lumber yards to the mills are out until the end of September or October. So you're not going to see, the problem is delivery and availability of OSB.
So Chuck, on lumber, you know, all these products, one of the things you've been talking to all our builders about is get your orders out as soon as you can. Any of you builders that are still entertaining change orders, now's the time to really, you know, put a clamp down this. You know, I was working with a builder, a last minute change order for an appliance. Well, guess what? They got out of it because the appliances they want to switch to wasn't available. You know, the availability of some of these pieces is crazy. One of the people that are on the call right now that we work with a lot just sent me a text that the hurricane in Texas is causing havoc as well. So just what we needed. You know, so all this is coupling into, we got to be a whole lot more organized. When I saw this chart, it kind of tied into all the builders we work with and all the different things we're hearing. I'm working with builders right now, and they're trying to figure out how to combat lumber. There's no combating lumber. Right now, for the first time that I think in my career, I'm saying stick tight to your lumber guy, because if you don't have it in, you're not getting materials. Chuck talked a little bit here.
Yeah,
We're talking about. Sorry, Chuck, go ahead.
What we heard from one of the lumber yards is they don't give a damn about price right now. They just want to get the supply.
Yes.
So
Chuck got
at
nice,
any price.
yeah, Chuck got a nice email. We can't really tell you who it came from. We got a report from one of the big lumber companies, you know, and right now they can't get pricing. They're one of the big ones that, you know, national. And right now, until it's on the flatbed or on the train, there's no pricing. There's no guarantees. You know, so later on we'll talk about this. It's all about how you use it. Sorry, Chuck, go ahead.
That's fine. I mean, I was just going to say, this isn't the first time this has happened to us. I've been in the business long enough that I date back to the last time we had massive lumber problems. And you could never figure out what the problem was. Was it stumpage price? Was it mill price? Was it, who knows? But what they were doing was they were shipping the rail cars from Oregon, Washington, and they were taking bids on it all the way to Chicago. And when they got to Chicago and they broke up the train, that's when you finally got a price on the lumber, and it would be shipped to you. But they were taking bids on all the lumber from the mill all the way to Chicago, and once the train got to Chicago, you could get a boxcar or a flatbed full of lumber. That was the way it was working, and it's pretty much that way right now. And what's going on with the lumber? Okay, so here we're talking about pricing. The biggest jump, of course, has been lumber, as we've been going through. And some of the things that we've been looking at and talking to people about is basically the lumber's not going to ease up. The lumber pricing is not going to ease up till sometime in October. So we still have about a month of issues. One of the things that we do have a chart showing that the lumber futures are dropping. So that's a good sign, and the fact that people are starting to see the end of this occurring. So when we look at the wood, it's been purchased, and basically what we're talking about, priced at the time of shipment. Okay, I tend to look at that, and it might not be priced at the time of shipment. It might be priced at the time it hits Chicago, and that's been the problem in the past. Studs are in very short supply. Ed just said Home Depot is charging, how much did you say that they're charging for a stud?
So 2 weeks ago, I did my first travel trip. Rick Maurer and I did a first travel trip. It was a driving travel trip down to Southern Virginia, very safe, a lot of product walking. I was walking a little 1,800 square foot house, and it was very old school framed. So it was 16-inch on centers, a lot of 3-studs corners, a whole bunch of stuff. And they basically, I counted 187 studs in that house that were not needed if they optimized the framing. So in order to do this quick little study yesterday, I logged online to my Home Depot app. It was $6 even for a stud yesterday at Home Depot. I called my lumber guy and he says he can do a little better than that, but it was just a price check. This morning I logged on, same exact Home Depot at $627. That's a pretty significant increase in one day. So in this little tiny house, we found 187 studs. That's over $1,100 in wasted money that I can't control the price. In fact, I can't control the price that much. It went up 27 cents in a day. So now it's up to $11.72. So, and some of the other pieces I was looking at with my lumber guys, some of the harder to get, the larger dimensions even have, worse changes and price increases. So we can't control it.
Right. And I will verify the fact that many years ago I did this. I had a builder that was doing 3 rental houses. And so we said, okay, let's see how many studs we can save in the rental houses. And we started out doing 2 stud corners, then going to 24-inch on centers and so forth. And that was like a 1,500 square foot, 1,400 square foot house. We took 150 studs out of that house. What I did is I had them order the same number of studs in each one of the houses. So we had the first house that was built normal, 16 inches on center, 3 stud corners, and then we took the corners out, and then we went to 24-inch centers. And by doing that, we took 150 studs out of the house, and we just stacked them up in the garage to see how many we saved. Part of the problem that we've got here is the second big bullet. We are right now in North America, we're 1 billion board feet less in production than what we were last year. And what happened is the Canadian production is down about 16%, plus they're having problems getting the material across the border. And the Western U.S. production is down about 5.2%. So again, that's coming from the mills in what we're seeing in the way of productivity at this point. Partly because they closed down. I mean, with the COVID scare, they basically closed down. That's normally the period of time that they would be increasing their production because they're out of the winter weather. They were getting started and really cranking up their mills, and then the mills got closed down. So they never were able to build up inventory the way they normally build up inventory in the operation. So it was a problem. Most people think that lumber, when we stop building, the lumber mills start building inventory. That's wrong. The mills are closed down during the wintertime, and they start building up their inventory. So come about March, and they have a lot of inventory come June, July, and August because they're milling at that point. That didn't happen this year. Okay, so what we look at is then also from the study we say, okay, how much lead time do we have in the operation? Well, 53% of the respondents said they increased lead time by about 25 days. And they look at the average delays, and they said 60 days lead time for appliances, 14 days for windows. Cabinets are in there. I think cabinet lead time is doubled from what it was. And then the response that we were getting back is lumber is back ordered. So it's not necessarily coming when you need it. You need to call ahead substantially in order to get anything out of the lumber operation. What about the time for construction? How has that been impacted by the COVID-19 close down? Well, 78% of the respondents said they've extended the construction times. And at that point, when we did the study, the average setback was 30 days. I think it's longer than that now. And what we're looking at, we're seeing a longer time pre-construction during that period of time, and we're seeing longer construction times because I can't put more than maybe one trade in the house at one time and so forth. So we've got a lot of problems also in delivery. We got product availability problems. We've got labor shortage problems. We got COVID compliance problems. We got permit problems coming out. I've talked to a number of the builders where to get a permit, it was 2 weeks in the past. Now it's 2 months to try to get permits out of the cities. Limited number of crews allowed in the house to work at the same time. So all these things are extending the construction schedule. Excuse me. For me, I look at that, and Emma, she does this annual study every year, and she's looking at the fact that with the increase in pricing, with the lack of ability to close houses in a timely manner, she's looking at the fact of having a big impact on the profitability of the builders for 2020 as we move forward. We also surveyed the manufacturers, and we looked at the manufacturers. They've had an increase in orders, yeah, absolutely, because they didn't expect to have the kind of orders that they've had for us to bounce back. They've had shipment delays internationally, and also because they've got closed downs in some states. They've got reduced operations because of the cleaning requirements, the social distancing requirements. You got the labor shortage of the labor in the factory, and you got plant closures. So the manufacturers have all had problems in coming back out of the shutdown. So what can we do? And we'll switch this over to Ed.
Yep.
Ed, go ahead.
Yeah. So I mentioned before, we're working with a whole lot of builders. There's not much we can do with the products. One thing we recommend is to get your purchase orders out, get your start orders out, give our trades or suppliers some kind of a lead time. Chuck just mentioned what we saw is 30 days. What I'm seeing in reality are more than 30 days delays. We're seeing extended soft cycle time. And during that soft cycle time, what happens is you're pricing with the buyer, you're kind of exposed. So that's kind of killing us. So all these things are economic conditions we have a little control over. We can control it to somewhat, but so what's our only choice is to reduce direct construction costs. When Rick and I were in Southern Virginia last week, we started identifying all kinds of little things to start, sharpening our pencils on the reduced construction cost. Redesign the product in some cases. I'm working with a couple of builders doing plan reviews, literally pulling, it's all nickels and dimes you pull out, then you add it up, it starts to add up. Just on amenities with the one builder where they were overdoing the amenities, just over time, prices were going up and sales were hot, and we didn't realize how much we're throwing in houses. Watch how much amenities you're throwing in. Redesigning on the product line, we're trying to get more cost effective, more affordable, just little details. And the builder last week, they're just the little details in the bathroom and the master bath. We actually took some stuff out and made it a better bathroom and saved money. So start looking at those efficiencies. This was all about an expensive, we looked at the glass door. By the time we sat down and looked at it, we made it a walk-in, made the bathroom better, and we pulled, I think, $750 out. So looking for some product simplicity, look for efficiencies. In some cases right now, we can start reducing square footage a little bit. Things were creeping up as the market was really good. So square footage start to go up. Watch your material usage. We just mentioned just the silly things like studs. This builder did a very good job on his eye joists. All his eye joists were 19.2 on centers. But there are a lot of places, they stick frame over the top of the garage. They were 16 inches on centers, was easily up to 2 foot on centers. That's a pretty significant, reduction there. We just start looking at little things. Like I said, on this little tiny house, 187 studs we pulled out. That was crazy. I started noticing they didn't have any details on how they're framing headers, double studs, stud jacks everywhere weren't needed. One of the things is, again, like I said, the standard specifications. As the market gets good, one of the tendencies all the builders have is to start throwing things in. Well, we can cover that. We can do this. We can do that. So Rick and I are trying to pull literally $3,000 out on just specifications where they kind of got a little careless and throwing things in. This builder, one superintendent, had a really clean job site. We start looking at it. The job site waste in some cases is extensive. Materials laying all over the place. I cannot control what lumber price is doing, but I can start controlling what the lumber, my deliverables are. I'm working with the builder now in the Midwest. I can't control what's going on with the market, but first of all, we unbundled. It was a bundled contract. They had no idea it was in it. Well, don't worry, you're covered. So we had a conversation by Zoom with a lumber guy and started unbundling things. Start looking at how to start specifying better. Start looking at the prices of different products to help reduce those costs. Right now, just on the building envelope itself, we're targeting $5,000 in cost savings there. Monitor your variances. When things are good and we're booming, variances kind of creep up on us. So watch the variances. Don't just track down the variance and know why. Work on eradicating the variances. So this slide, I found a slide. We're doing this, writing it last week. I found a slide, and then Emma found a newer slide. And this is the future, so we can see on the right where it's starting to drop a little bit. It's starting to ease up. I'm not going to claim to say that I've studied it well enough to know, but I want to stay close to what this lumber market is doing. Like I said before, I can't control what the lumber market is doing, but I can control how the lumber is being used and how delivered. In some cases, right now, lumber is so expensive. The guy in the Midwest I just mentioned, we start going back to the lumber yard. And like I said, now's not the time to start getting all brave and start bidding and threatening. I got to stay close to these guys. I got to stay real close to them. Because right now, they're years ago, we were on allocation. We're about that there now. If you don't have a good contact and they start jumping around, I may not be able to get lumber. So what we're talking with the lumber yard is, first of all, we're unbundling the turnkey, number one. And we're also starting to put the lumber pile together, lumber order together in the use format and sub-banding them. So that way the framer can see exactly what they are for each load. First floor loads coming out, first floor deck, first floor walls, the headers, all the parallels, all the I-joists. We're sub-bundling them and we're teaching the framer how they're being used. The hope is now, before it's all started, Jim Wagner and I were having this little conversation. How do I get the framer to start following the details? How do I start using them, the 2-foot on center? I can do a whole lot of things. I can start highlighting the plans that they get. All these walls here highlighted in yellow, they're all 2-foot on center. I want you to start using these corners. And you really got to stay on top. You got to babysit them. You got to be on site. That's the only way we can do it. Right now, I think we can start, dropping some of our lumber usage. We mentioned this before. Communicate with your suppliers. One of the things one of my favorite things is I want to be in more contact with my manufacturers and suppliers than I ever was. So that's just, I want to send my POs out as early as I can, get confirmed delivery dates, give them half a chance to deliver. The other thing that's happening right now in a couple of our builders, are seeing dramatic increases in their sales rates. They were doing 20 a month, now they're 30 a month. Well, don't keep it a secret. You better start telling everybody that you're growing, you're picking up. Start forecasting that to all your trades and suppliers. Give them the clue. Other products and materials. Talk to your trades and suppliers. What else can I use? Are there other products available? If I come up with a shortage of one product, how do I find the other product? And I want to have that backup plan in place. If I was using 2x12s in an area, now can I use I-joist? If I'm using I-joist, what's the other manufacturer doing? Just start, opening up those conversations so I can find other products that I can bring in place when I need to. In some cases, if I put enough houses on the table, I can start getting price locks. If I start telling the supplier that, hey, this fourth quarter, I intend on starting 50 homes. You can literally be starting thinking about putting out the bid for those 50 homes. Give them the opportunity to lock you in for those pricing. Get those POs in hand. In some cases, those POs in hand gives them the ability to go back out and secure that material for you at a certain price.
And just comment here. I mean, we already have products on allocation. One of the things that I just found out about is insulation is on allocation. It's still okay, but it's on allocation. As it gets on allocation, my suppliers need to know that I need the material so that they can order it early on. And so the earliest I would have, if I sell a house, the faster I can get all of my POs out to my vendors, from the day I sell the house, the better off I'm going to be in being able to keep my schedules going. So this just-in-time POs going out to the vendors, those days are over with right now. I need to have everything locked in place, probably within 2 weeks from the signing of a contract, to everybody that's going to be working and supplying material to the houses.
Absolutely agree, Chuck. I mean, some of the software systems out there give you multiple stages. Have the discipline to get it done, get them out early. Working with Builder now that between not getting POs out in time and then not having long, the next slide's about managed soft cycle. So their POs weren't going out timely. They were getting long, and the soft cycle was extended. They were losing in the second quarter, they were losing 3% on their gross because of the cost creep, because they couldn't get things locked in. So soft cycle is from point of sale, from the time you meet with the buyer and get deposit or contract to the point I can release. A good soft cycle is 2 to 3, maybe 4 weeks. What we're seeing now is builders getting really extended. Back in the second quarter when COVID first happened, okay, we had some issues to overcome, but those issues are pretty much gone. We can pretty much find ways to get it done. Those soft cycles, as I'm in this little black hole, prices are going up. So what you might have to do is, in some cases, it's the builder's fault. So if it's our fault, we got to clean up our acting and get all our stuff timely, get back to our customers and keep things moving. If it's the buyer, there might be, I can hold this price, but we have the under contract done released by September 30th. Otherwise, you're exposed to an increase. Okay, so you got to be honest with them. You tell them just log on. Go ahead, Chuck.
And that's tied to getting them through the design center.
Yes, absolutely.
In other words, you sign the contract. You got 2 weeks to get through the design center and to finalize your selection, so we can finalize the contract. If not, your price may have an escalation clause in it. If you're not able to meet the deadline.
Absolutely. In my old worlds, we had two different pieces of the contract. One was point of sale with the sales folks, and that was the structural order, the house type, the lot, the hand, anything that had to do with the building envelope. Those POs were out the door within 7 days of signing the contract, and then out for permit. We were in effect then 2 to 3 weeks in design center. So our soft cycle was almost zero. Within 30 days, we had permits and we were building. What we're seeing now is these things are getting extended. We're just not efficient. Chuck's point that we shut down in March and in April, and then we came back with a vengeance in May. So we were in backlog. Then the price increases start happening to us. So we got to explain to the buyers and give them the heads up of what's going on, hold them to times. What we just did with a builder who's a little more custom in nature is start putting milestones and timelines in, whatever those appointments might be. And we got it from literally 60 plus days, we got it down to a schedule for 30 days. And now the buyers know it up front. Share with the buyers what those timelines should be. Don't make a surprise. And then be honest with them, what's going to happen if we don't hold to the schedule? The biggest problem now is we have to hold to the schedule. What we see a lot of builders is they can't keep up. Chuck mentioned the next slide is about an escalation clause. You should absolutely have an escalation clause in your contract. You have to have a certain period of time where you'll lock in. So working with builders now, in our consulting world, is I've got to forecast my numbers a certain, literally 30 days out. If I'm not forecasting the numbers, I got to hold them to my buyers accountable to that timeline and ourselves. But then that escalation clause comes into play. Now I'm not trying to get the escalation plus some overhead and stuff. I just want to get paid back for that price increase. Lumber just went nuts. It literally doubled. Builders right now are reporting lower direct construction, higher direct construction costs and lower gross profit. It's killing us. The one thing that we've been talking a lot about is consider raising prices. one builder we're working with now is, I don't want to shut the market down. I don't want to have a $300,000 product line and raise prices 5 or 10%. I'll shut the market down. The other thing that's going to happen if I do that and I get too aggressive is the houses won't appraise, and I need more down money. They got a little more money in their pocket potentially, but I got to be careful. What we always recommend is little increases. The builder we're working with, last week is we really need to find out what's going on in the marketplace. And in that rural environment, they don't have a whole lot of competition. Most of their competition's resale. What's that doing? It's up, it's selling, but what we're finding out though in our early study is they've been underpriced for a while. But if I jump too high, you'll shut your pipeline down. Then you got to rebuild it. So the next slide is kind of a recap. Is the product availability and shortages. I mean, right now, every time we turn around, so one of our builders from out west, sent me the text as we're talking about what happened literally in Houston with that flood. I mean, we have a couple of our HVAC companies down there. Every time we turn around, there was recently in my market this new electrical circuit that was being required. There were none of. So what we had to do is go back to our local municipalities and say, listen, I'm going to close the home. Don't hold me up. But how do I then I'll come back with, as soon as I get the parts, and replace it. You got to start getting creative. Appliances are a problem. We have some of our builders right now that are playing musical appliances. They're closing houses with temporary ranges. So it's everywhere you turn. The newest one recently I heard was cabinets. At our local, cabinets are usually produced somewhat locally and then shipped. For our local company, they had a COVID instance which shut them down for a week. That week killed them. That's a 25% in a month that they lost when they're already behind. So always be looking for the other categories, other increases, other shortages. Talk to all your suppliers, talk to your trades constantly. It's killing our lead times. We got to get our POs out the door, and it's really crushing our construction times. One of the things we're doing is making sure that I'm tracking what those variance days are in like Mark Systems is our sponsor. Make sure you're tracking what those variance days are. I can start seeing what those variance days are and then start working on that. Windows. Right now, I have builders right now, point of contract are ordering windows. After that, come in when change order at that window, that change order fee is now going to include the fact that the house might be sitting for 3 weeks to a month waiting for windows. Change orders are killing us more than they ever been. So we have 10 minutes, Chuck, for some Q&A. There's a lot going on.
We've had some, in addition to that, we've had some situations with HVAC. HVAC is having problems with their suppliers getting some of the raw materials. So we've heard factory problems with the HVAC in addition to some of the other stuff that we've been looking at.
I have the results from the poll. If you guys want to share that real quick, I can put that up for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There you go.
Because this seems to be changing daily.
Yeah.
So interior doors have been becoming a problem lately. So that one's I'm not surprised that flooring's coming along, and I'm hearing more about that on a regular basis. So any of you builders that have a design center, I'm working with a builder right now, designing and building a new design center for them. One of the big things we did on flooring is we not only went to the local installer supply house, we brought the manufacturers in, and we're trying to get them to tell us what they can guarantee. What's the other one? Interior doors, windows, I'm not shocked. I'm surprised nobody else is having problems with cabinets. I've been hearing that one recently, and maybe that's a regional thing.
Oh, and I didn't even add that one to the list.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard a lot recently on the cabinets. One of our in the Northeast, in one of our builder groups, it's the running joke is who's got the cabinets, who's got the windows, and who's getting them. So
yeah,
that's a whole nother story. Emma Jane, I know that one.
When you look at the decking, I'm getting comments about pressure treated material not being available, and also the composite decking. Big issues with both of those.
So I was in Southern Virginia, and then from there I went down to Charlotte to see my daughter. So I rode by 3 yellow pine mills that had nothing in the yard. Nothing. The yard was empty.
The other thing that's not here that we're seeing is door hardware. I've heard a lot of complaints about the not available for door hardware. Now that could be hung up because it's probably mostly coming from China, so it could be hung up in the ships. They're not getting off the ships in time, but I've heard quite a bit of complaints about door hardware.
Yeah, that can be lumped in with the doors, Chuck, being blamed on doors, but it might be the hardware tying up the doors as well.
Right. Well, Emma Jane, why don't we go to Q&A?
All right, we do have one question. This is from Whitney Karchner, and he is asking.
We only have one?
I know. You guys have done a fabulous job. I'm sure. Oh, here's some more. We got more coming in. Okay, so
All right.
Whitney
the dam is open.
The dam is open, so start getting your questions, and this is a great opportunity to get those questions answered. Does anybody have at least a semi-accurate forecast as to when lumber pricing will start coming back down again?
Hearing from the mills, latter part of September to mid-October. And we saw that in the futures chart that Ed just put up. We're starting to see the futures starting to come down too. But from the mills or from the large lumber yards, we're hearing don't expect it'll be towards the end of September to mid-October that we'll start seeing some relief.
Okay.
That's what I heard as well.
Excellent. Okay, we have another question. So we have time for quite a few more questions. So if anybody else wants to type in a question, or you can raise your hand and I can let you ask. You can ask your question out loud. The cost associated with changing the design, does the cost of redesigning a product wash out the cost of cycle time increase? That's one question. The second question is, do you recommend increasing cancellation fees on homeowners? And the third question on Build Pro, do we start the tasks as early as possible, or do you think this will confuse the vendors to see all those tasks starting? So I can reread the first question for you.
Do the first question first, because
Okay.
I can't remember three questions at once.
I know. The cost associated with changing the design. Does the cost of redesigning a product wash out the cost of cycle time increase?
So a couple things. If you're building one house, maybe. Working with a builder now that's 150 homes a year. And for sure, I mean, we literally did 5 plan reviews and we probably took $5,000 out of each plan on little things. The product design fee with an architect was probably $1,500, $2,000 and some marketing, but they're going to save that every single time and for over the course of a couple years. That'll pay for it. The one question is on the cycle time is we did this pretty quickly and we turned it around in 3 weeks. So the end result to the customer was in 4 weeks. So it's all hands on deck to pull the cost out extremely quickly. So it takes a lot of effort, but it can be done.
So what Ed's saying is from the time he started in the redesign and the rework of the material to actually in the hands to the framers and to the workers, 4 weeks, right?
Yes.
Was your turnaround time to get that done?
The architectural fee, the team estimating, repricing, and on the street was 4 weeks. I mean, to the consumer in 4 weeks, which means that the builder realized the design savings and the amenity savings in 4 weeks.
Right. Okay, second question.
Second part of the question. Do you recommend increasing cancellation fees on homeowners?
Cancellation for canceling the contract or canceling or changing a product? Canceling, I'd have non-refundable
canceling the contract.
I'd have non-refundable money at the front end of the deal.
I mean, here's the thing. There's a certain, I mean, I have a cancellation contract. I haven't started. You know, if I haven't started anything, I would do the right thing and let them out, because I probably can go fill that slot pretty easily. If I got money involved in it, then it's like Chuck said, it's non-cancellation.
Yeah. I mean, I could have a lot hold or a hold and have refundable money on, but once I start doing modifications or I start spending any time on that contract, I want some non-refundable. And for a lot of, when I used to build, I had a lot hold, and then when we sat down with the client and worked on any changes they wanted on the basic plans, then we had an architectural fee that was a non-refundable on that. So at some point, we have non-refundable money going through the
Absolutely.
process, so that I've got, if they cancel out, I don't get stuck with a set of plans I can't do anything with, or selections I can't do anything with.
Right.
That all that money is non-refundable money.
The third part of the question is, on Build Pro, do we start the tasks as early as possible, or do you think this will confuse the vendor to see all those tasks starting?
So this is somewhat of a loaded question. There's a lot of different software programs out there. They all run a little bit differently. And the first thing is, you can do anything you want, as long as your schedules are accurate. If your schedules are not literally accurate, yes, you are confusing the vendors. What might be more important than that is getting some of your lead times for your POs out there.
Right.
I'll give a little plug to our sponsor, Mark Systems. In this case, I would get the Mark Systems POs out the door as soon as I can, close to point of sale as possible. Then after that, when I'm using the schedule, you know, I can start forecasting and maybe increase some of my lead times. So the Build Pro question, I would say, if your schedules are accurate, yes, I would start showing the vendors more so they know it's coming to pipeline. The other way to do this is, for example, if I'm a community that's running at 3 a month and I'm changing to 4 a month, not a big deal. But if I'm at 3 a month and I go to 6 a month, that's a big deal. That's a 50% increase. I can pretty much guarantee you most of your trades won't keep up. So start thinking very easily, forecasting the labor trades and suppliers, what's my monthly release rate? And if you were at 10 a month and you go to 20 a month, that's a problem. They won't be able to keep up. So I'm not trying to duck the question on the Build Pro, but if your schedules are accurate, yes, you can. If your schedules are inaccurate, you're causing a mess.
All right, thank you.
I
So we have
would let all the trades know the schedule early on. I wouldn't wait until 2 days before they're supposed to be on the job site.
No.
Even as a custom home builder, I used to have a job site meeting where all my trades were on the job site when I was a custom home builder, and I would give them the schedule, and I would have them put it into their calendar. I said, I can't guarantee that specific date, but that's the week you will be on this house. And so from right before I even dug the hole, every one of the trades that was going to be on that job site knew exactly what week they were going to be on that job site. And they coordinated amongst themselves. The thing that was nice about it, since they were all given each other's phone numbers, they were all given their time frames. We walked the job site mentally through so that everybody knew what the hell they were supposed to be doing and when they were supposed to be doing it. And it simplified our lives, and it cut our time frame down tremendously. I mean, we could build, in 90 days, we could build a 7,000 square foot house. So the more you can do that and get them working together and coordinating the operation, the better off you are. And the earlier that they know what they're supposed to be doing on the house.
That's especially true now, Chuck, with the COVID situation, depending on your
Yeah, exactly.
you know, the
And with
COVID thing. Yeah, I mean, I want the trades to talk. I mean, if my plumber's going to be in the house for an hour extra in the morning to finish up, the next trade behind them might know that. They might get away with an hour, but you know, right now, some municipalities for us are watching the capacity in the house. So You know, it's like Chuck's point, it's more important now to communicate between the trades than it ever was. But don't worry about it. I've only got one guy in the house. You know, we can get away with it.
Yeah. The other thing that you've got to worry about is the suppliers. I got to get my purchase orders out early on, and I got to give them an anticipated date of when that material needs to be delivered to the job site. Worst thing in the world is to have the trade show up and the material's not there.
Yep.
So I've got to coordinate both sides of that on my construction schedules right now.
Okay. We have another question from Kevin. We have been experiencing problems with whole home generator material supply. We can't get transfer switches or power units from 2 different suppliers. If this is this a national issue or a localized issue?
So the transfer switch, and I mentioned some of the electrical parts. That was the parts that that was one of the parts we're having problems with. In that case, we closed the home without the right transfer switch and had to come back in. So my best guess is it sounds like it's a national thing. You know, you might want to call, if your electrician doesn't have a good answer for you, start calling supply houses. You know, maybe call the manufacturer direct. Nowadays they can log on, might be able to get an answer. To me, it sounds like it's more of a national issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have another question from Hannah. My main lumber supplier is having trouble filling lumber POs and is passing on some upcoming projects because they've overcommitted their lumber stock. Any advice on how to navigate this?
That's why I said to you early on to stay tight with your lumber folks, because they're having a hard time growing in their little world. And working with, this is the other thing that Chuck talks a lot about, is the 80-20 rule. It's a little late now, but I'd start cultivating some other deals. If I have to put 40% of my work to take away from the other guy, I might be able to lure somebody else in and get some guaranteed pricing or some guaranteed stock. You know, so now's the time to like communicate.
Okay.
Yeah, and the thing that we're getting back from the lumber people especially is, I don't care what the price is, I just need the material. And they're trying to take care of their current clientele. If I'm trying to switch right now, lumber suppliers, I'm going to have a hard time, because they can't supply their current loyal customers that they've been dealing with for a long period of time. So it's going to be very hard to become a new customer for a lumberyard right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And my best guess is just start reaching out to all the lumber companies. You might get lucky and find somebody that you know has some access to it. You know, they're still hungry. They're just taking care of their current customers. My lumber guy right now will not take on, to Chuck's point, won't take any new customers on. And you know, they're trying to take care of who they got. Your lumber company, I don't know what market you're in, but the only thing you can do is start making phone calls, get in the horn. You know, try reaching up to some of the manufacturers, even if you have to, and start working backwards.
Okay,
And it might be heresy, but you might need to go to Lowe's and Home Depot, which is tough. Lowe's used to be a retail lumberyard for home builders, and they went into consumer, made the transition. So they have a background of being a builder supply. They might be a little more attuned to that than Home Depot. Home Depot never was. They've tried it a couple of times and screwed up. So you might be able to go in and talk to Lowe's.
So the other thing is, I've had a lot of luck with private, smaller yards than I have with the larger yards. I'm not going to mention any names, but some of the larger ones, you know, are the ones that are on constraints. The lumber guy that I use, Chuck gives me a hard time because I still build at home. My lumber guy is much more, I wouldn't say mom and pop, but he has a lot more latitude. He's right now talking to multiple mills to keep, Chuck talked about, even 2x4 shortages. he's got multiple access. He's a little more nimble than a larger company. So try to sometimes give the small local ones a shot. One of our builders in a secondary market has had some good lucks with a smaller yard against one of the big nationals.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, our final question is from Matt Hagan. Are manufacturers providing any data on where their production levels are at?
Their projection levels.
Where are their production levels?
I think, we have some pretty good relationships, with some. Rick Maurer is on point with, and a lot of other people in little partnerships are. If it's one of ours, let us know. We can reach out. Some of the reps that I know, I've been talking to, and you just got to find the right person. They'll tell you. I know windows right now in my market, we're on the East Coast, they're down because they've had multiple COVID incidences in the mill, in the factory. So the best thing you do is communicate and reach out. If it's one of ours, we can try and find out for you.
We have another question that came in from Manal. One lumber yard is requesting a 30-day contract because of the constant price changes. The other yard is advising against it. Do you have a preference?
Right now, if I was doing a contract for 30 days out, it's a gamble. If it keeps going up,
Right.
the only thing I'll tell you is do your research. I used to do a lot in my old world, do a lot of research, and then if I'm gonna say yes to a lumber yard and go 30 days, say I'm going from beginning of September through September, I probably would have taken that deal for September. I don't know how much more I'd go into October because the indications are looking like they're starting to catch up, and then maybe we'll see some easement. So in my past life, I spent a lot of time reading and playing the market, and I think I won most of the time. But when you lose, you lose. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah, it's interesting that somebody's requesting a 30-day contract right now. I think they're betting on the fact that the price is going to start coming down.
That's
That's the word on the street. By end of September, mid-October, prices will be down. So I think we've peaked. So they might be trying to cover their ass right now, but covering themselves by getting into a 30-day agreement.
And I would agree with that. I mean, anything beyond 30 days. And here's the other thing. If I went to a 30-day agreement that went from September 15th to October 15th, and I get into the third week of that agreement, I can always stall POs and put them into the next period if it came down. There's a lot of gamesmanship you can do. Usually when you're doing that, you're forecasting a certain amount of quantity and material, but the end of that 30-day period, I can start holding POs and just delay if there's a significant drop, or conversely, if it's still going up, I might decide to start a couple spec houses.
Yeah, and the problem with the forecast right now, most of my builders are 120 to 170% of capacity right now with construction. Mm-hmm. They started everything they possibly could. They are over capacity for what they have in the way of superintendents and trades and so forth. The construction times are going to get extended. If I look at forecasting closings are going to be down because of all the situations that we have right now. I think that the actual closings that we have, and that's when you make your money, you get your cash at the end of the deal, closings are going to be off this year. Shouldn't be. Activity starts is going to be high, but closings are going to be low.
Yeah, what we're seeing in some cases, Chuck, is builders that have started more, but then their cycle times got longer because they started more and they weren't able to keep up.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Plus you lost the 3 weeks or the 6 weeks. So what happens is it takes me 9 months to build, where I lost my March through 1st of May. I've started everything, hoping to hell I can get them closed by the end of the year. And that's not gonna happen because my construction times are getting longer.
Yep.
So Eric would like to know if you think that lumber prices will drop to where they were in March.
Not for a while, I don't think. You go back to that slide. Hey, Chuck, can you go back to that slide?
Yeah, I will.
March, we thought they were bad. They're going to come down a lot. I don't see it happen. I don't think it'll happen this year. March, no.
Yeah,
I don't think.
It's got to drop. It's got to drop 50% or more.
Yeah. I don't see that happening.
Plus the market's fueled, and the lumber mills have to catch up. They have no inventory, and if you look at what's going to happen, they basically start to close down in November. Normally, they built up their inventory so they can make it through the winter months closed. They're just trying. This is trying to get the zero right now.
Yep.
And they have no inventory on the ground in the mills. And this is the middle of, let's say it's the middle of September. So I got October and November, and then they're closed. They're not going to get inventory built in the mills.
And we still have backlog for the builders. Builders have a lot of backlog, sold more than they could get released. So they haven't even seen all the releases because the soft cycle's extended.
So Julie wants to know, when do you think they'll get to at least the July levels?
So there's this month I made up a long time ago, February. Never going to happen.
I think it's going to be next year. They got to get the mills opened up, and they got to start production.
Yeah. So July is definitely February. I'm looking at it now. It's going to be a long time. You're asking for it to get below March to get the July numbers. I'm working with a builder now that went long in June, which was a great deal in June to have gone long. However, now he's paranoid because the 90-day lock is up and his lumber is going up $15,000. Again, one of the things I said before, our best defense now is stop wasting lumber. We were just lumber pigs for the longest time, just blowing out lumber right and left, just using it up. It was cheap. Now with the threat of studs are $6 and $8 a stud, 3 times what they were, a year ago, is we got to get a lot more frugal using the material, start talking with your lumber guys, start forecasting your usage. I agree with Chuck. I don't think we'll see a significant drop, because usually what happens is on a normal year, it'll stay high, and then usually October, November, they get caught up and we'll start seeing some let up, and you'll see the lowest typically at the beginning of the year. I don't know that we're going to have at all a normal cycle this year. Everything I've read saying no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Julie, basically what I hear you saying is that, first of all, you want to get very efficient with the way that you're using lumber. But Julie wants to know what other advice you have. Should they slow up their home building, or do they increase prices to absorb the increase in prices of lumber?
I'd be careful with spec houses. And we talked about this earlier, is I think a lot of builders have not stayed up with what the market will bear on pricing. The builder now, one of those now that we're working with, they're doing a lot of market comp information, trying to figure out what's transferring in the county. Are they really right? And the little increases. I can't do a $10,000 increase on a $300,000 house without causing major issues.
Yeah, you close it off for at least 6 weeks.
Yep.
You don't want to do that. The smaller increases, yes. And I think you need to do both. I need to raise my prices, but I also need to not start everything all at once, because you don't have the labor, you don't have the supplies, you don't have the ability to do that. I would actually start staging this stuff out. How many houses do I want to deliver each week? and maybe it's 3 that I start, or 4 that I start, or have it per community of how many starts you're going to put in each one of the communities. Start having your trades, especially my framer, being fully occupied in one of my communities and my staged releases. And that way I can work with my trades, and I can work with my suppliers, and my suppliers then have a reliable delivery schedule that they're delivering material to. The more I could do that, the better off I'd be right now.
Agreed. I mean, some of the builders I'm working with right now, that we start looking at more of an, even flow philosophy. I call it sell by. So I'm going to change what my capacity is a little bit, but I got to forecast that to everybody. The other thing is, think about it, if you start creeping numbers, I got to start driving more traffic so I can start absorbing some of those lost buyers because of my increases. So if you're going to do that, depending on who's on this webinar, somebody's got to reach out to marketing and let them know that I really want to make sure that I'm increasing my marketing effort.
Well, that is it for all of our questions. Chuck, if you'll go to the consulting team slide, I just want to thank you guys for your presentation today. I think it's great. I hope it was helpful to all of you and you got some great ideas. I do want to let you guys know that we do have an amazing consulting team here at Shinn Consulting and Builder Partnerships. Ed Hauk, who was here with Chuck today, he is available for consulting and coaching on operations, purchasing, value engineering, and design centers. We also just recently brought on Rich Cashin, who will help with technology review, assessments, and strategies. Rick Maurer, who Ed spoke about today a little bit, specializes in purchasing, contract negotiations, value engineering, design centers, mark system implementation, and assistance. And then we also have Jim, who specializes in management, marketing, sales, operations, finance, quality valuation, effective ownership, leader transition, and performance excellence. These guys are available to help you at any time. We do have virtual consulting and coaching packages that are available. We can fine tune whatever it is that works best for you and your operations to help you improve your management systems and improve your profitability, especially now that that's a very important piece. You want to make sure you're focusing on making money when things are getting a little bit tough. Chuck will just switch to the next slide. You can see right here the various services we provide to our clients. We offer a rebate program, which is phenomenal, so you don't want to be leaving money on the table. Our manufacturers offer very generous programs, and so you can reach out to one of our reps here at Builder Partnerships to figure out which programs you are eligible for and stop leaving money on the table. Bring that back into your organization. We do have a data transfer available.
Just a comment on that, MJ.
Yep.
One of the things that I have one of the people that work with Builder Partnerships is making phone calls back to builders right now. And earlier this week, talking to one of the builders, sitting down and talking to him, the builder says, "I'm using 4 products that I have never asked for the rebates on." You need to take a look at it. There's money just laying on the table for you if you just pay attention to what we have in the way of the manufacturers and the programs that the manufacturers offer.
Absolutely. And we do offer data transfer to help that process become even easier than it already is through Mark Systems and COBA.
If you're on ECI Marks, we have the setup to where your submissions are real easy because our computer talks to your computer, and it's an automatic download of all the rebate information that we need to submit to the manufacturer.
Absolutely.
So there's no forms that need to be filled out.
Exactly. Another great service we provide is builder groups. So if you're looking for a support group, essentially for builders, we offer builder groups. We do have some openings in our builder groups. Reach out to us and we'll see if we have a fit for you. And then you can always take advantage of our surveys where we do surveys with your trades, your employees, and your customers to see how you're doing so that you can make adjustments that are necessary to improve your operations. If you'll switch to the next slide, Chuck, they can see the manufacturers that we have close relationships with right now. Always changing. This list is always changing. Rick Maurer is working closely with various different manufacturers to make this list even bigger and more robust. So if you're working with any of these service providers or manufacturers, make sure you're in contact with us so that you can maximize your rebate potential. We do have, if you'll switch to the next slide, go ahead.
Yeah, or if you're interested in talking to one of those manufacturers, you can contact one of our people and they can contact the national sales people or your regional rep and have the regional rep come sit with you on the product. So there's a lot of services. You may not be using one of the products, probably not. But you're saying, you know, I've seen that product before, and it's a good-looking product. I'd like to talk to them. I've got a new community that I'm opening up, and I'm going through the specifications for the product that the houses that I'm going to put in that community. I'd like to sit with some of the manufacturers.
Absolutely, and that's where the partnership comes in, builder partnerships. We are offering some classes. Obviously this year we haven't been able to do live classes, so we've introduced our Home Builder University and our online courses. We are offering production management, transforming managers into top performing leaders, which will start on October 6th. We still have a few spots left in that. So if that's something of interest to you, I would recommend registering for that quickly. And then we also have a new class called Home Building 101, how a successful home building business operates. This is designed for somebody who's newer to the industry and just needs to have an overview of how a home building business works. You can get more information on those by visiting our website at builderpartnerships.com/events. And on that same page, you can also see a list of all of our recorded webinars and future webinars. We actually are working on a webinar for October. We're going to have somebody come in and talk to us about smart home technology and how that works. So keep your eyes out for information on our next webinar. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to email or call us here at the office. There's our webinar Wednesdays. All right. Well, I believe that is everything for today. We want to thank our sponsor one more time, ECI. They've been a tremendous support for us, so we want to make sure to thank them for their continuous support, and we really enjoy working with them. So thank you again, ECI Marks. And like I said, you can contact us here at Builder Partnerships if you'll switch to the next slide. Chuck and Ed's information is right there. You're welcome to email them any questions you have. If there's other questions you have from this webinar, you can email them a question there, or you can email us at info@builderpartnerships.com and we can forward you to the correct person. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great day. If you're in Colorado, we had a 60-degree change in temperature, so 101 degrees on Saturday, 32 degrees yesterday. We're enjoying a little bit of snow here, so we're having a great time. Well, have a great day, and we'll see you at our next.
And it's going to be 85 on Friday.
Nothing like being in Colorado.
The Denver, Colorado weather was just like the charts I showed at the beginning of the seminar.
Pretty close.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much. You have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar Wednesday or at one of our online classes. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.